fights that I think British boxing needs more of. We brought a lot of international fighters over, but I think when you get a chance to make a great domestic fight, you should do it.
Lee Wood's always been adamant about getting that Forest Crown homecoming sort of match. Why wasn't it this one?
Because it's October and because it's right in the middle of the Premier League football season, and I think unfortunately when he lost to Maurizio Lara, it really put a spanner in the works for the City Ground fight. You've really got probably a 2 or 3 week window where you've got a chance to make a fight of that magnitude at a football ground, and unfortunately when he had to rematch Maurizio Lara, that moved the fight till October and it made it very difficult. So we had some great conversations with Nottingham Forest. I'm convinced they want to do the fight, and I think he's already said to me that if he wins, I have to deliver him the fight at City Ground, otherwise we might lose him as a fighter. So we'll see who comes out victorious on October 7th.
This past Saturday, Spence versus Crawford finally happened. I know you picked Crawford, but it was one-sided.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I thought he'd stop him, but I didn't expect it to be as one-sided as it was. I think there's a lot of people. One of my reasons for that was one because of how good Terence Crawford was, but also because Errol Spence has got more miles on the clock, and what I mean by that is the car crash, the retina operation, a couple of tougher fights. I don't think he lives as well between fights as Terence Crawford, but it was a total domination, and just shows you how good Terence Crawford is. I mean, he's a 3-division world champion, he's a 2-division undisputed world champion. I think he becomes a 3-division undisputed world champion quite easily, and he's finally getting the fights to showcase how good he is, but also showcase him as a personality, because he's got a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely. In regards to a rematch, do you think that rematch should be warranted at 154?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because when you do a fight like that, a lot of the time it comes with a rematch clause, and a lot of the time it's down to the fighter to exercise that rematch clause. Sometimes the crowd, the public and the broadcaster don't actually want to see a rematch, but tough because the fighter has that, it's a bit like Coley against Billum Smith, right? He's got a rematch clause, so you're going to have to see it again, but quite right, because the champion gave him the opportunity. Weird in a situation like Spence against Crawford, but it is what it is. Now I don't know whether the terms of that rematch warrant or allow for a fight at 154, but I would like to see Terence Crawford fight Charlo, but I don't think we'll see that. Obviously he's going to fight Canelo, and I guess then he'll move up to middleweight and then the belts will become available, so maybe he makes a charge at 154.
Yeah, some fans are getting onto Derek James. Bomac spoke out saying that he didn't even have a game plan, and some fans are saying he should have stopped it a little bit earlier. What do you think of that, both the stoppage
I think the stoppage was fair enough. I mean, look, he never stopped trying,
Yeah.
but it's when he tried harder, that's when Terence was really counter-punching him beautifully and making him pay. So Derek James is a tremendous trainer, and just because you lose to Terence Crawford don't mean that you're not a very good trainer. You fight at the highest level like that, and sometimes you're going to lose.
Yeah. There's a lot of debate now about who's number one pound for pound, Inoue or Crawford. Who you got for number one?
Yeah, I got Crawford, consistently over time. It's very difficult for those lower weight class fighters to get those kind of accolades, and I think sometimes there isn't the liquidity in the divisions of elite talent to allow them to be true pound for pound top fighters, but obviously Inoue is one of them, but I'll give it to Terence Crawford.
Yeah. Speaking about Inoue, he's moving up the weights. This is at 126, right? Inoue just fought at 122. He might come up in weight again. People are saying that he might lose, at 130. Do you think, one of these guys could face Inoue?
At the end of the day, he's going to get beat by moving up the weight classes. That's the only way fighters like that get beat. A bit like Lomachenko. Really, he's a featherweight, probably a super featherweight, moves up to lightweight, it starts becoming more difficult for him. And that's the same with Inoue. Sooner or later he'll move to feather or super feather. We got the winner of this one. We've got Joe Cordina at super feather. Inoue's a tough fight, but those bigger guys will definitely fancy their chances against him.
Yeah. Haney versus Prograis.
Yeah.
Reportedly that it's getting made.
Yeah.
Is it done?
No, definitely not done. Mike Coppinger announced it was done last week. I did text him and say it's not.
Yeah.
But it's close. Regis really has confirmed the fight really to us, and we're just waiting on Devin Haney. But I'm very confident that fight gets made.
In regards to how's it going to work in terms of Haney? Is it just one fight? Is it going to be multiple fight deal? How's it going to work?
We'll see. I mean, Devin's made it clear and Bill's made it clear that if they had a choice, they'd like to be with us, but we've got to deliver the fights. And obviously, Regis Prograis is our man, and we've delivered for him. We've delivered a big money fight, one of the biggest in boxing, and it's up to him. He believes he can beat Devin Haney, and that's what he'll be trying to do.
Yeah.
When you look at your schedule for the rest of the year, would you say this is one of the biggest fights on the schedule, or almost a fight that could have been a pay-per-view?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we moved to DAZN, you know, we wanted to do less pay-per-views, and I think, would this be a pay-per-view on Sky? Possibly, not definitely, possibly, depending on the card. Obviously, you see Eubank Smith and fights like that at pay-per-view, and it's just a really good fight. Like, I feel like another huge fight we're announcing tomorrow as well for DAZN, and that's another fight that could be pay-per-view, and I think that's what we need to do more of, really. We need to have those big fights monthly that really draw the attention of the subscriber and the fan, and build the narrative as well. And if you can't get excited by Wood Warrington, you're not really into British boxing. Like, it's just an old school, classic domestic fight for a world title, and you know, the schedule will be packed with fights similar to this.
A lot of people are saying this is one of the biggest fights in British boxing at the moment, up there with the likes of Eubank Smith. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Eubank Smith's got the name values, but it's got no championship on the line. It's not really the elite level of the sport, but it's quite interesting because it's Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith's a very good fighter. This is arguably the number one in the division against a two-time world champion that was number one for a long time, who is looking to become a three-division world champion. One guy from Nottingham, one guy from Leeds, in Sheffield. The styles clash perfectly. It's just a really good fight. So it's a fight that means more than Eubank Smith, but obviously there's interest in that as well.
And when could we see any undercard news for this card?
I mean, I'm just waiting on a contract from Cecilia Brackhouse. Terry Harper will fight her here as co-main event. Once that contract's signed, which we've been assured it will be by Terry and by Tom Loeffler and Cecilia Brackhouse. Expect to see Janae Boston in a big fight here as well, but we'll make an official announcement on the undercard before tickets go on sale.
And last one from me, there's a few rumours that Jack Catterall could be headlining Liverpool against Jorge Linares. Could you just give us any update on that?
Yeah, Jorge Linares is definitely one of the options we have for Jack Catterall. I like the fight because Jorge's on a mission to try and land a big fight, and he's a very good fighter, and obviously everyone in the UK knows him from the Kevin Mitchell fight, from the Anthony Crolla fights, and I think it's a good fight for Jack Catterall. Jack does want to fight Josh Taylor, but I don't think that's there to be made just yet. But I think if we can have a big fight for Jack Catterall against Jorge Linares, it can move him on to either the Pro Grey Haney winner or Josh Taylor.
Eddie, for Lee Wood, of course this fight isn't at the City Ground, but for the next fight, of course, it's supposed to be at the City Ground, and it's set to be at the City Ground. And so, for opponents-wise, Josh Warrington was this huge kind of domestic fight to get all the fans for in England. But who else do you think, for an opponent-wise, say that if Lee Wood wins, would get the same kind of tickets round for?
I think that the Joe CORDINA fight's a big fight. You know, I mean, Joe would want that fight in Cardiff, but wherever it generated the most money for both guys, you know, it would give the winner of this fight a chance to become a two-division world champion as well as a 2 or 3 time world champion. Joe's on a great run, looking tremendous. So I think that could be an option for him for sure. Or listen, I mean, this fight will be a cracker, and if it's a cracker, you may see it again. But we'll see.
Of course, and for this fight, like you've mentioned, it's going to be an amazing fight, and both of these fighters have mentioned that they've probably not got loads more fights left in them, but for this, is this kind of this legacy-defining fight, one that was pretty much necessary for them in their career?
Yeah, I think both guys just want the biggest fights possible, and we know that comes from the domestic fights. Josh Warrington's, like, both guys have got a couple of things they want to tick off. Josh Warrington wants to box in America in a big fight for his fans, and Lee Wood wants to fight at the City Ground. So although they're fighting for a world title, they're also fighting for a chance to make sure they get that opportunity.
And for Warrington, of course, he's coming off the defeat, but how do you think his kind of head's at, and do you think he's that kind of strong mentality fighter to be able to come off defeat and be able to go straight into this world title?
Yeah, I think he's massively underrated, Josh Warrington. I mean, I think a lot of people just look at his fan base instead of looking at his resume and the wins he's had. You know, I think he's fresh. I thought he did well against Lopez. I thought he had a nightmare start, come back in the fight, could have won the fight. I thought he took everything from Kiko Martinez, who's been clearing everybody out, and beat him. We know about the Lara defeat, but I think he's physically in a great place. Mentally, I think he looks good, and I think he'll believe he's a favourite in this fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight, and he thinks that he's a stone cold certainty to win the fight.
Ben's been cleared now, so what's the plan for him now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm giving interviews on it all the time. It's frustrating because obviously there's a confidentiality with UCAD, but everybody seems to keep telling me he's not been cleared. I mean, when your suspension gets lifted and you don't receive a ban or a penalty and you are cleared to box, I don't know what else cleared is. Like the British Boxing Board of Control.
Language is quite plain.
Yeah, but the British Boxing Board of Control follow UCAD rules. So they have 21 days to appeal. I'm sure there's a lot of people in their ear telling them to appeal, but he keeps doing what everyone's asking him to do now, and he's been, you know, and then people say he wasn't cleared by the WBC. Well, he wasn't banned, he wasn't fined. They said we're happy that there's no intention of, you know, cheating in this incident, and you're reinstated in the rankings. If that's not cleared, I don't know what else. You know, so it's like when are you? He hasn't boxed now for a year and a half. He's been fighting this for a year. When are you going to accept that he's cleared to box? And I don't think the public ever will, because it's like they've got to be in their bonnet. And I said to Conor the other day, you've done your job. Now you've got to get in there and fight. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But I would like him to fight in September and then go into a December fight. He wants to go into the biggest fight possible now. But he's had a tough old time. And to go back in the ring after a year and a half into a massive fight after everything he's been through, I'm not sure how wise that is.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Who's just young? Staying with the kind of thing. Obviously, he's in the welterweight division. So would a fight with him and Buttercup be?
Yeah, I mean, so you're talking about a young elite prospect, world-class fighter against pound-for-pound number one. So that's the fight that everybody wants to aspire to get in. But I want to get him back on track. You know, Eubank, Kell Brook, Josh Taylor.
What about
you
someone
know.
like Boot Tennis?
Yeah, good fight, another great fighter, another elite fighter. But that's the fights that Conor wants. But after everything that's happened, I do want to see him get back in the groove, get his confidence firing. Because don't forget, before this, he was flying. Knocked out Algieri, knocked out Van Heerden, full of confidence. And, you know, yeah, it's affected him. And I think I want to see him back. Yeah, sure.
Are there any negotiations with any potential opponents at this stage, or are you still waiting
For
Conor Benn?
there's always been discussions, yeah. But we'd like him to get licensed with the British Boxing Board of Control, which, you know, we'll await to hear from him.
Eddie, early signs, who's looking to sell more tickets, Wood or Warrington?
Good question. I don't know. You should ask them,
Is there-
actually.
is
I mean,
there a- is there a visit to the
so
Rolling
so
Stone
it's
for the
like
winner?
11. Nah, it's like
He was in there doing
yeah, I
the
know.
again.
It's like 11,000 the arena. I think both guys will be selling like 4,500 each out of hand. So I think when Lee Wood boxed Maurizio Lara, he did about 3,000 in Manchester on his own, and Josh Warrington does. I mean, when Josh Warrington boxed in an 8-rounder in, I think it was Munich or wherever it was, he did like 800 in a 6-rounder. This was like 10 years ago. So he'll be doing his 4,000 easy, and the atmosphere will be brilliant in there.
And just on follow on to the colleague here, Conor Benn. I saw Manny Pacquiao smiling when people put it to him the other day at the big fight. Is he one of the people?
Yeah, I mean, he's not necessarily in the mix for the next fight, but he's a huge name. And everyone's always going to moan, oh, man, you know, first of all, it's like Conor Benn, we don't rate him. Then it's, oh, you can't put him in with Manny, that's a mismatch. What, against Manny Pacquiao? You know, I know he's getting on a bit, but he's still an unbelievable fighter. So we'll have to see. Big name, but probably not next for Conor.
Is Conor ready tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, his weight's not. You know, we was laughing about it the other day. He's probably still...
Well, on that,
You
what
know,
weight is he going to be actively
I mean,
moving
look, he
forward?
wants to campaign at welterweight, but at the same time happy to take fights at 154, and also the Eubank fight would be at 160. But he's walking around probably 170 at the moment, so he needs to get back in the gym and in full camp, which is now underway.
Eddie, this has all the hallmarks, Wood Warrington has all the hallmarks of being an absolute classic. Is there a rematch clause in this fight?
No.
It's not.
No, which is quite unique, because, especially with a champion, the reason for that is because there's a mandatory defence. So the winner of this fight has to fight Komatov regardless, right? So unless they vacate the belt or move up or rematch for no belt. So in that instance, the champion v challenger effect in this fight is actually irrelevant, because if you can't fight each other after this fight for the belt, it has to be Komatov.
That's interesting then, because obviously Lee Woods wanted this clause put in the contract that
For
he fights
sit-
in the sit
yeah,
round
yeah.
next.
But he knows that only happens if he wins.
Of course.
Yeah.
So if he wins, it's Komatov then.
I don't think so. I think he'll move up. I think that his time at featherweight, which has been a long time, and we know he's tight at the weight, but sometimes that's his blessing because he's so strong at 126 pounds. But the problem is with a Komatov fight is when you're trying to sell a stadium fight like the City Ground, we know Komatov's a very good fighter, but you can't walk around Nottingham and say Lee Wood's fighting Komatov, and you know the general public around here or the general sporting audience get excited. They'll get excited for maybe a Josh Warrington rematch if it's an unbelievable fight, a Joe CORDINA fight for him to become a 2-division world champion, or another champion or a big name American. But I don't want to be disrespectful to Komatov. He's an outstanding fighter, but I don't necessarily see the winner of this fight facing him.
Knowing the way Lee Wood goes about his business, he's not going to want anything if he moves up anything other than a world title fight, surely.
Yeah, and nothing else other than City Ground. So it has to be a big fight, but obviously he'll have his mind focused on this one.
If it moves up, who's the potential opponent?
Yeah, I think Joe CORDINA, obviously, an all-British fight. It's a great fight. Other champions up there as well. But, I think that both these guys, in these kind of fights, it's a bit like next week with AJ. People say, is the loser finished? It's like, fighters don't really like to talk like that. But if they all want mega fights or the biggest fight possible, if you lose at this stage, they're not going to want to come back in a 10-rounder. Do you know what I mean? But everybody loves to fight, and they never want to retire. And I think physically, Lee Wood, he's in the prime of his career, especially with his performances. And I think Josh Warrington is really physically in a good place as well. So we'll have to see.
Can I get your reaction to just Plant slapping or punching Charlo?
Yeah, he's game, isn't he? Plant always seems to want to chin people, and Charlo didn't do a lot. But let's leave it between the ropes for that kind of stuff.
How would a fight with them two play out?
It's a good fight. Good fight. I just want to see Charlo back in the ring. He's been out now for a year and a half?
Yeah.
Something like that. So yeah, it'd be good to see him back in the ring.
Eddie, for Komatov, is Ford still kind of the next option if Lee?
If the winner of this fight doesn't fight Komatov, it will be Komatov-Ray Ford for the vacant title, and we'd look to do that as soon as possible after this fight once we got confirmation.
And Conlan said in an interview that he would fight the winner or the loser of this fight, and do you think that's another huge fight for whoever wins or loses?
I mean, look, he's coming off the end of a bad knockout, but maybe he moves up to super feather as well, and we'll see. Cheers. Bye, boys.
Thank you.